right. Welcome into this week at Gridiron Icon. It is a very special week. I am flying solo this week. I've lost my voice. I look ragged. And why does that all make it a special week? Because, folks, this host, this guy, this grown kid just watched his Los Angeles Rams win the Super Bowl. And I could not be more excited and more amped up than I am even days later, 4 or 5 days later. Of course, the parade was just 2 days ago, but this is what I am going to call the post Los Angeles Rams Super Bowl 56 celebration show. And I'm going to fly solo. No room for guests this week. There hasn't been any room for sleep. Let's be honest. The Los Angeles Rams are world champions. And for those of us that have followed this team since we were boys, in my case, since 1977, when I was 10 years old. Yes, I did just reveal my age. This is incredibly special to talk about a Super Bowl win by the team that I love so much. And of course, I love the game so much, therefore the show Gridiron Icon. But let's be honest, we all start somewhere, and this is my team. What makes this so incredibly special does not take away from another very special moment in Rams history, which was the 1999 Super Bowl team led by Dick Vermeil, who got into the Hall of Fame this week. God, this has been a great week. And Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt, soon to get his yellow jacket, Orlando Pace, Todd Light. Oh my God, such great players, incredible memories. Another absolutely amazing moment in Rams history. But, and I hate that word, but, that did take place in St. Louis. For those of us that go back even further with the team, as I mentioned, I did in the 70s. This is really special because the Rams have won the Super Bowl for the first time in the city of Los Angeles. And I know, based on what you saw at the parade, based on what you see on social media, that I'm not even remotely the only guy feeling this way. I'm probably going to be floating for a few weeks on this win. And it's just incredibly special that the city of Los Angeles and the Rams have finally won a Lombardi and brought it back to Los Angeles. For me, I became a fan in the mid-70s or so. I watched the team, of course, get really close with the guys I idolized in 1979, 1980, losing really in that last quarter to the Pittsburgh Steelers and what would eventually be the end of the Steelers dynasty during that time period. But that game was extremely tight going into the third, fourth quarters. Some things didn't go our way, and this kid was rough after that loss. So again, all of this kind of paints a picture on why at Gridiron Icon we are talking about my LA Rams this week and what was a fantastic Super Bowl, unbelievable grit, chock full of storylines. It's just unreal. So you can tell, yeah, bear with me. I'm amped up. We're going to talk a little bit about the Rams this week and talk about Gridiron Icon moving forward as we are efforting some really cool stuff for the near future with iconic players and coaches, as we've been teasing that for a few weeks on this podcast. But we're really, really buckling down now. I'm not going to lie. I was flat out freaking distracted during this playoff run by my Rams. So good stuff coming. We'll talk more about that. But let's talk about this game, the Super Bowl. And in my opinion, you can't talk about it enough. It had so many incredible storylines attached to this game, not just for the Rams, but I want to tip my hat to the Cincinnati Bengals, who were just incredible in this playoff season. What an incredible, unlikely, unpredicted run by a team that a lot of people thought had pieces in place, but were probably a year or two away. Folks, I love Joe Burrow. I mean, he is nails. The kid has ice in his veins. He, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, God, the league's in great hands at the quarterback position moving forward. But really want to tip my hat to the Cincinnati Bengals fans, to the Cincinnati Bengals players and coaching staff. Of course, Zach Taylor came from our Rams. Did I mention that? And I hated to see him lose one because I thought he did an incredible job this season. But, of course, I'm not too upset about that. Sean McVay and my Rams got a win. However, nothing but top top line respect for the Cincinnati Bengals, who I think will be back. They certainly need to draft along that offensive line. We'll get into that. And maybe at the corner position, we're not going to pick on number 20. I think he's been picked on enough in social media. Don't go on Twitter if your name is Eli Apple. Don't go anywhere if your name's Eli Apple right now. People are picking on him. Of course, he kind of asked for it. We'll leave that alone. But again, big congratulations to the Cincinnati Bengals and their fans, who I thought had an incredible football season that was chock full of its own storylines. But we're going to focus in on the world champions, Los Angeles Rams. I couldn't be more jacked about this. So here's the thing. I want to ask listeners, viewers on YouTube, what, in your opinion, was the top storyline before we get into the game? Because I don't know. And yeah, I'm biased. Sure, I'm biased. I'm admitting I'm biased. But I don't know if I've ever seen a Super Bowl with more storylines. Now, look, there have been Super Bowls with negative storylines, but with positive, unbelievable, like real human, fuzzy storylines than this Super Bowl. And I couldn't be more happy that it's the team that I love the most, my Rams. Let's start with Matt Stafford. Here's a guy that the team as a whole, including this host, this fan, was very skeptical about what we gave up to get Matt Stafford in Los Angeles. Also happened to be and continue to be a big Jared Goff fan. So I went into that with real mixed emotions. But here's a guy that's a 13-year vet, has broken significant passing records. And I'm not going to get into all the arguments that people have about him doing it in Detroit late in games when they were blowouts. Matt Stafford is an incredibly talented football player, a good dude who gives back to his community, and an unbelievable quarterback, as we saw this past Sunday. What a story. He's on the Detroit Lions, just mired in losing. And look, I'm rooting for you folks in Detroit. That's my AFC morning game every week. But mired in losing, just like Barry Sanders was, just like Calvin Johnson was. He very politely, by all first views, asked to be traded. He goes to the Rams. The pressure was immense on Matthew Stafford to produce, not just because of him, but he's the prime cog in this wheel when you play quarterback. There's no question, there's no argument around that. Look, Von Miller, I'm sure, felt pressure. OBJ felt pressure, but nobody felt the pressure that Matthew Stafford did. He comes in at quarterback. He leads us to victory against some of the toughest teams in the NFL. Don't even come at me in reference to the Cardinals, who started out hot and then laid a massive egg at the end, subject for a whole nother podcast. But the Buccaneers and the 49ers, two of easily the most smash-mouth, blue-collar, tough football teams in the NFL this year. Stafford leads us to victory, then gets us into the Super Bowl. His numbers are unquestionable. His toughness is unquestionable. There were several times he was on the turf briefly with leg injuries after getting sacked. But here's a guy that was traded out of really football Siberia, comes into Los Angeles, leads this team with all the pressure. Look, it was Mount Everest pressure. It was unbelievable on him to perform in his first year, and he nailed it. And I don't think there's, well, I'm going to give you the chance via social media, YouTube comments and whatnot, to tell me who you thought your top story was in this Super Bowl. Stafford is right up there with me, arguably the greatest story, and really arguably, because I'm about to reel off a whole bunch more. But what Matt Stafford did was absolutely phenomenal. And I'm glad he's the quarterback of the Los Angeles Rams, or should I say the world champion Los Angeles Rams? I'm going to abuse that the next year, people. The world champion Los Angeles Rams, Matthew Stafford. But, almost immediately, as is the case, people want to now start debating if he's worthy of the Hall of Fame. People, can we just let him win the Super Bowl after 13 years of losing? Let's just let him win the Super Bowl. By the way, I didn't see any announcement that he was retiring. He was funny as hell at the parade. He was seriously buzzed, torched. Now, there was a thing with a photographer that he's made right, and him and his wife have volunteered to pay for it. Not going to get into it. Matthew Stafford was an incredible story, a likable guy. And if you've seen the mic'd up with NFL Network and some of the coverage that they're giving, I think you will just fall in love with the dude even more. He loves his teammates. They love him. They respect him. Congratulations to number 9 on winning his ring. Always liked him, even as a player in Detroit. Really happy that he's the quarterback of my world champion Los Angeles Rams. Let's move on to the guy in front of him, Andrew Whitworth, 40 years old. 40 years old. The oldest player in the league now that Brady has retired, officially, unofficially, whatever. Andrew Whitworth comes in at 40 years old and plays lights out football at left tackle. And if you haven't seen some of the highlights and some of the things happening post the Super Bowl, particularly with NFL.com, NFL Network, and some of the NFL films, I should say, that does such an amazing job. Andrew Whitworth not only played fantastic against much younger players and Hendrickson and others, but he actually threw down some intimidation in this game. Go check it out with the stare downs and some of the other stuff. But again, not only is he playing at 40, but he's playing against the team that drafted him. It's like the ultimate game every athlete wants to play in. Not only at his age, possibly his last game, by the way. I mean, what a Cinderella story. But he plays against the team that drafted him. And oh, by the way, as you saw in his parade speech, the team that apparently gave up on him and told him he was too young or too old, excuse me, too old to be playing the game at 35. At 40, Andrew Whitworth is a world champion on the Los Angeles Rams. An incredible story, a guy that had just a couple of nights earlier won the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, ends up with a ring, plays a fantastic game in the Super Bowl. And did I mention he's 40 in what could be his last game? He's making it a little more ambiguous now, but I'm guessing it's probably his last game, despite the fact that he's very close with Sean McVay on a friendship level. And he carries a nice $16 million tag moving forward at left tackle at 40. So what an incredible story. I don't know if there's anything else an athlete ever dreams about except walking away on his terms. But at his age, with a Super Bowl ring and just a universally loved and respected guy, the Andrew Whitworth story is right up there too. Let's move on to Cooper Copp. Maybe you've heard of him. Number 10, wide receiver, Triple Crown winner, Offensive Player of the Year, goes on to catch 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl and ends up being the Super Bowl MVP. In my opinion, at this point, Cooper Kupp should have been the NFL MVP. He should have been. And look, I'm an Aaron Rodgers fan. I actually like Rodgers more than the weirdo crowd that can't stand the guy. I like Aaron Rodgers, but Cooper Kupp, every single time he is called on, he is money. He is nails. He is the best wide receiver in the National Football League. And I know that there are other great, talented wide receivers, Devontae Adams, incredible ball player. But Cooper Kupp and what he did this year, coming close to almost 2,500 collective yards, running away with Offensive Player of the Year, winning the Triple Crown, winning the Super Bowl MVP. Folks, I don't know if we really appreciate, and it's going to take some time for us to appreciate just what we saw from a guy who was not recruited out of high school, out of the state of Washington. He was a 0-star recruit, played at Eastern Washington. You can tell in his interviews he's going to be the next Sean McVay in the coaching ranks if he decides to do that, although he's a little more introverted and quiet. What an incredible football player. The Cooper Kupp story and his rise to Super Bowl MVP from 2021 to 2022 is one of the top storylines in the National Football League. It's certainly one of the top storylines in this game. Let's move on to Odell Beckham Jr. Are you keeping track of all these storylines yet? OBJ, rejected cut by the Cleveland Browns, He'd been dumped by the New York Giants. He'd been injured, dealing with an ACL. He dealt with all the negative media and fan backlash that he's cancer, he's a locker room cancer, he's a bad teammate. He comes in, and early in the first quarter, he looks like he's about to run away with Super Bowl MVP. It was clear the Bengals had no answer. They were looking at Cooper Kupp. They were doubling him almost exclusively. OBJ was loose. He catches the first touchdown of Super Bowl 56. And he looks like he's on his way to tearing it up before he goes down with a no-contact knee injury. God, I hate the turf. Hate it. Whole nother subject. But goes down with a no-contact injury. The emotions flow. Both teams are taking a knee. And OBJ ends up with a Super Bowl ring. After all of that, just literally weeks earlier, he's cut by the Cleveland Browns and unwanted, and ends up being a key piece of the Los Angeles Rams Super Bowl run, and easily could have been MVP the way it looked early, because they were definitely trying to take Kupp away. OBJ, what a rags to riches story within just a few weeks. And now, of course, there's talk about how he's going to have to obviously rehab. You're already seeing these scenes out of like Rocky 3 with him and Robert Woods, one of my all-time favorite Rams and players, running up the beach, rehabbing their ACLs. I mean, folks, the future is bright if they can figure out a way to bring OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr., back to the Rams. What an incredible story. Okay. Are you keep track of these stories? Because I'm just rambling. There's so many. Cam Akers tears his Achilles back in June, July of 2021. He's our starting running back. He looks like a multi-purpose back, cut in the same mold as a Marshall Faulk. He's dynamic, tears his Achilles, brokenhearted, looks like he's gone for the year. The man comes back in the span of 7 months. 6 months to play in the Super Bowl, not just the Super Bowl, but on the playoff run. Cam Akers, you are a machine, man. I mean, that is one of the most unheard of things. You heard Troy Aikman talking about it, that I've ever seen in football, even for a young player, to tear their Achilles tendon and to come back and be the starting running back for the Rams in the Super Bowl. It wasn't his best game, but that wasn't his fault. I do want to add that he had an incredibly key play. His run to get the team down to the 8 in the final 2 minutes that led to the Cooper Kupp go-ahead score touchdown. Go back and watch that, folks. The Cam Akers run is nothing but guts and effort to get them down inside the 10-yard line late in that game. And it was one of the key plays to the go-ahead touchdown. But Cam Akers, you are an animal, man. Coming back to play off a torn Achilles tendon within months. What a story. Speaking of tears, 37-year-old Eric Weddle is talking youth football coaching. I'm exaggerating, probably eating Cheetos, hanging out at his house when he gets a call from Raheem Morris, ends up going on a playoff run with the LA Rams. He's in the Super Bowl starting at the safety position. He wears the green dot after being retired for 2 years. Wears the green dot, calling the plays for the defense in the absence of the injured and missed Jordan Fuller. Tears his pec inside the first quarter. Continues to play basically with one arm, and don't at me. If you go back and watch the film, he's making tackles, some of them absolute teeth-rattling hits, trying to protect one entire side of his body while doing so. Some of his key hits and tackles are on the last drive by the Cincinnati Bengals. He's 37, hasn't played in 2 years. He's got a torn pec, and he's out there giving it his all. Folks, look at this storyline. Our left tackle's 40. Our starting safety wearing the green dots, 37, hadn't played. He's played, 3-4 games under his helmet, and he's starting in the Super Bowl. I keep track of these stories. I'm going to keep saying it. It's unbelievable. We move into macro level conversation. Sean McVay, who had come under heat, had lost to the Niners 6 times in a row, balls out and beats his friend and rival Kyle Shanahan to get into a Super Bowl, becomes the youngest coach in Super Bowl history at 36 years old. He's younger than Eric Weddle to win a Super Bowl. And if you listen to all the NFL film stuff, who does, God, they're phenomenal, who does all of the great behind the scenes stuff, catches conversations, you can blatantly hear Aaron Donald and Matt Stafford and Cooper Cup and Matt Stafford in one embrace. You can literally hear them say, we're just getting started. So Sean McVay at 36 has taken his first step at creating a dynasty in Los Angeles with the Rams. Yeah, sure, I'm fanboying, but I believe it because they have the talent and they've proven between McVay and Les Snead that they have the balls to do what it takes to put this team together and in a position to win championships. It's an unbelievable story for Sean McVay. And outside of Stafford, as I mentioned at the outset, had tremendous pressure on him. Sean McVay had even more. For the way he's built this team, for the draft picks traded away, for the people that he's brought in to build his concept, and then to deliver at SoFi Stadium at home is a Cinderella story. It's unbelievable. And he's doing this at 36 years of age. So the Sean McVay piece of the story, I think, has gone a little bit understated in terms of his youth, his coaching tree. He loses coaches every year. He's got to rebuild his coaching staff. And 36-year-old Sean McVay is a world champion. He's the head coach of the world champion Los Angeles Rams. It's an unbelievable story, people. Don't sleep on it because it's probably the beginning of something very, very special. And then just other stories that I don't think rank with the human piece of this, the human element that I just rambled off, is this whole super team concept. We saw the Bucs do it a little bit last year when they got to be champions, bringing in the kind of players and people they wanted. But Les Snead and the Rams and Kroenke and Kevin Demhoff and McVay took a lot of heat for this whole super team thing. And somehow this organization was able to tape those pieces together, those personalities, people coming in at midseason, losing one of my absolute favorite players, the heart and soul of the team in Robert Woods, and then just backfilling with somebody like Odell Beckham Jr., Cam Akers, coming back to the fold after Sony Michel and Darrell Henderson, who also got injured and came back to the fold, keeping that running back room together. No egos. We, not me. Folks, this is incredible stuff. But that super team concept came to fruition in its first year. Not even sure we can call it that as you take a look at the Von Millers and the OBJs and how they melded into what was already a very solid foundation for a championship run. And then I want to shout out to what happened there right at the end of this team and what McVay faced in this game, not having a Robert Woods, not having Tyler Higbee, not having Kendall Blanton, who got hurt, and then having to lean into Ben Skoranek, a rookie, having to lean into Bryson Hopkins, who we haven't heard much from. Folks, go back and watch a Super Bowl. Hopkins comes up with key nails, catches at times when they had to keep the chains moving. I just have never seen a Super Bowl where we have seen this many storylines. So if you're listening and you follow us on YouTube and you follow us on Twitter, Instagram, give us what you think was the top story out of this Super Bowl, because I'm having a real problem wrapping my head around the greatness that was the story of the 2021-2022 Los Angeles Rams. It's mind-boggling, the storylines that led to this championship. Okay, I want to shift gears for a second because I don't know if we can even wrap our head around what we're watching. from the guy that wears number 99. I know the media's on it. I know social media's on it. I know talk shows are on it. You're seeing him at Laker games. You saw him at the parade. But when you're talking strictly football, when you're talking strictly NFL football greatness, NFL football history, NFL football is a brand. All of the players, all of the names, you put that into a hat and you throw it up, you mix it up. I don't know if we are really even stating enough or appreciating enough what we're seeing out of Aaron Donald. This is one of the most incredible football players to ever play this game. And look, I am a Rams fan. I'm also a huge football fan. I've seen Reggie White play football on 2 different teams. I have no words for how great he was. I've seen the Derek Thomases play football. I've seen Lawrence Taylor play football. I saw at the very tail end Merlin Olsen. I was very young. I got to see Jack Youngblood, one of my favorites. I got to see Kevin Green. I got to see some of the greatest names in defense, particularly rushing the passer and defensive line or at the linebacker position play. I can't even wrap my head around what I see in number 99, Aaron Donald. He is absolutely incredible. How does anybody even put together a resume like this? And look, I just reeled off some names that are very similar, okay? But by the age of 30, he's 30 years old, folks. He's not done. And by the way, he's not retiring. Didn't need to hear him talk about running it back at the parade. Didn't need to see any of that to think he's not retiring. He's gotten a taste of what this is now as a champion. But how does anybody put this kind of resume together? Aaron Donald, just for the record, I just want to say it out loud for myself, but I know you Rams fans are loving this too. Super Bowl champion, 3-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year, NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2014, 7-time First Team All-Pro. Come on. 8-time Pro Bowler, Deacon Jones Award winner, NFL 2010's All-Decade Team, Sporting News 2010's All-Decade Team. I could just keep going. He was an All-American in college. He's a first-round draft pick. Aaron Donald's greatness can be captured a bit by reeling off everything that he's done and every award and trophy that he's done, that resume. It can, but it almost doesn't encompass it. It just almost doesn't. There were 2 moments in this playoff run that just encompass Aaron Donald and how amazing he is and what an unstoppable force this guy is. And I'm sure you may have your own 2 moments. I get to talk about my 2. And one of them was him in the NFC Championship disposing of Jimmy Garoppolo in a moment when we had to have it. We had to have it. And to watch him make that play, spinning Garoppolo like a rag doll to where he desperately heaves up a ball that is in the end picked off by Trayvon Howard, is just one of what led up to, it was almost like he was teasing us, if you will, to what he was about to do in the Super Bowl. When the game is on the line, the greatest players in the National Football League and in the sport rise. They seek the moment. We've heard that as Rams fans in the past from Marshall Faulk. We've heard it from other greats. Kurt Warner said stuff like this. But Aaron Donald is quickly become one of those players that even his coach knows will seek the moment. And his toppling of what was a 6-game losing streak to the 49ers in the NFC Championship game when they looked to be finishing with the ball last was what I thought at the time one of the greatest moments in my Rams fandom history. But then he goes out on the biggest stage with the championship on the line, and he does it again. Completely different team, completely different scheme, completely different moment, bigger moment by default, bigger moment. And it is absolutely incredible to watch him decide, I'm going to win the game now. I'm going to take this game over. It's my ring. It's my trophy. I don't know that I could state how many times I've just rewound and rewound and rewound the play where he just destroys Spain using his signature move, gets to Joe Burrow in what looks like, I mean, if you don't have goosebumps, it looks eerily similar to the exact same thing he did to Jimmy Garoppolo to get there. Spin him around as he desperately heaves up a ball that drops to the turf and just begins to say, give me my ring. Aside from all of that, aside from all the resumes, it's moments like that, those two moments when everything is on the line, that the great ones, the greatest ones, rise to the occasion. And we got to see something so special in Aaron Donald in this Super Bowl run. If you haven't seen it, again, referencing the Mic'd Up with NFL Films, even Sean McVay walks up to him, points at his temple, and says, this is your moment. This is the moment. Stop it right there if you've seen this clip and look at Aaron Donald's eyes. Look at his look when he looks at his head coach. And then as he gets out onto the field, the mics catch Sean McVay saying what we were all thinking. We were all thinking it. Aaron Donald's going to go make a play. And he did. If you're somebody who doubts the greatness of this, whether you're a Rams fan or just a football fan, don't doubt it. This is one of the most incredible runs by a football player you will ever witness. If you're fortunate enough to be watching this and seeing him rise to the occasion like that on the biggest stage, it's an absolute blessing, man. It is a treat. It is, I don't know what word you want to put to it. It's incredible. And, I don't care whether you're a Rams fan or not, you better love 99. These kind of things do not happen. We did see it with Reggie. We did see it with other very special, Lawrence Taylor, Derek Thomas, very special football players. But not everybody gets to do it when everything's on the line. Aaron Donald sought that moment. He got to that moment. He delivered in that moment. It's absolutely amazing. Aaron Donald is just beyond special. And let's just put this to rest. They did it at the parade. Forget it, folks. Sean McVay and Aaron Donald are not retiring. I don't think I personally needed to hear that or see that to believe that. They've just gotten a taste of what it's like to be a champion. Very special things ahead. Want to remind everyone the head coach is 36. The star, the best player in the National Football League, is 30. So here we go. Brace yourself if you're a Rams fans. Okay, I wanted to, segueing just for a moment, again, with the whole theme of this podcast being the Rams and this Super Bowl win. I think it's really important to call out some guys that I thought were just really special in this game. And not just this game, but in the playoffs. A'Shawn Robinson. If you are a football nerd junkie and you'd like to break down the All-22, go back and watch A'Shawn Robinson in this playoff run and in the Super Bowl. Him and I'll throw Greg Gaines in there too, who I absolutely love. These guys really complemented what Aaron Donald was doing, particularly in the running game. Absolute nails in the Super Bowl, particularly on that last drive where they tried to run the ball several times. A'Shawn Robinson and Greg Gaines, very underrated, still young, still developing. Look out. Because if they get even more pieces around them, and they will because that's the nature of free agency and how teams change, this is going to be a very special defensive front for the Rams. I want to call out before I move to offense real quick, another guy that I thought went really overlooked in the playoffs, and on the very last play where Aaron Donald tosses Joe Burrow down and wins a Super Bowl, go back and watch the film. This guy, number 22, University of Michigan, David Long Jr. He does something really special. Sure, it's scheme, folks, but you still have to do it. Everybody talks about Jalen Ramsey, who shuts down a whole side of the field, and they forget about Darius. They forget about David Long. If you go back and watch this play, Joe Burrow snaps that ball, and as was the theme for the entire Super Bowl, he immediately looks to unload the ball. Very quick, two-step, three-step drop stuff, quick passes. He looks out to the left flat for what is, and the Rams knew it, Raheem Morris knew it, what was going to be a quick in or a quick slant. David Long drops his player in the flat and cuts off the angle to the slanting wide receiver. It's very subtle, and it was all AD needed to get Joe Burrow to hold that ball a split hair of a second longer. And David Long put together some really nice games. I want to tip my hat to number 22. Fantastic job. Big future there. Also another young guy. And then I just want to finish with somebody that I already mentioned in Bryson Hopkins, our tight end out of Purdue. You know, as Ram fans do, as the fans do, we all kind of get on players that are drafted and we don't see them develop quickly. Listen up to this. You guys who perhaps are still young and maybe not getting the playing time you thought you would. Bryson Hopkins, when called upon, when Kendall Blanton went down, who was filling in for Tyler Higbee, and Johnny Munt is injured and out, Bryson Hopkins came in and made unbelievable, tough catches down that stretch. I mean, the catches themselves weren't tough. He didn't have to do anything crazy, but he had to make them. They were chain movers. And I think he's gone overlooked a little bit in this game. He made several catches that were very critical to keeping drives alive, including the final drive that Cooper Kupp finished off with the touchdown from Matthew Stafford. Go back and look. Bryson Hopkins, folks. I want to tip my hat to number 88. He did an incredible job down the stretch when called upon for a guy that didn't see a ton of playing time during the season. Just an incredible job in the Super Bowl. Okay. There we go. There's my ranting and raving about this fantastic 2022 Los Angeles Rams Super Bowl victory, Super Bowl 56. How do we keep it together as we end? Some very interesting things to note, because now we're going to launch into the off season, not only for us as a podcast, Gridiron Icon, as we chase players and coaches, but for this championship team, the Rams, my team. And a lot of people, of course, we're gonna start busting into the mock draft season and the free agency season. And are the Rams really able to keep this together? Well, I'm going to share with you here some things that Rams fans are going to be watching, because no team has repeated since the 2003-2004 New England Patriots. It's not easy, folks. It just isn't in the NFL. This isn't basketball. This isn't, other sports. The NFL is filled with parity, and players move and shift. Here's what the Rams are looking at unrestricted free agents. And yeah, look, let's celebrate. I'm not trying to send a panic into Rams Nation, but here's a list of names that are going to be unrestricted free agents going into the offseason. Von Miller. Absolutely critical. 2 sacks in the Super Bowl. Didn't even have time to talk about him. What an unbelievable story. Agbanya Arankwo, who has really come on. He had some injuries early in his career. Over this last season, he was a fantastic role player at the outside linebacker position. You go back and look at a lot of photos, a lot of sacks, and number 45's right there. He's in on the action. Unrestricted free agent. Odell Beckham Jr. Do the Rams bring him back? Knee injury, ACL, it's going to take time. I called it earlier, man. I'm just picturing Rocky 3 moments with him and Robert Woods running on the SoCal beaches, getting back in shape so that they're in that wide receiver room. But it's a tall order. There's money to consider. But OBJ, unrestricted free agent. Sony Michel, a guy, very underrated move to bring him in. Sony, you were absolute nails in several games. And I think a big part of the running back room moving forward, but can we keep him? God, those Georgia running backs, that program, just turning out guys left and right. Buddy Howell at the running back position is unrestricted. A guy that I think a lot of us came to appreciate, Brandon Powell at special teams, punt returner, kick returner, was absolutely phenomenal this year. I thought special teams instantly got better when he arrived. Here's where it starts to get a little nervous. Guard Austin Corbett, center Brian Allen, left tackle Joseph Noteboom, unrestricted free agents. Okay, Rams fans, we know how important the offensive line is. We talk about it a lot. These are going to be big moves for the Rams to consider. And then some guys that you don't want to dismiss this either. Dante Dayon, who was an inspirational, crazy fun leader on this team at the cornerback position. Darius Williams, who didn't have his best season. He came under fire a little bit about mid-year, but really played a fantastic Super Bowl at the corner position opposite Jalen. And then, of course, Johnny Munt, who seems to be a McVay favorite, loves the system, got injured. Here's a list of our restricted free agents if you're a Rams fan. Traven Howard, got to keep him. I think he's got a big future, good coverage linebacker, good tackler. You could see a world where Traven Howard and Ernest Jones are playing at those inside positions and in the linebacking core. Troy Reeder comes and goes on the love for him. I think he's that guy that you can't help but love and root for. Blue collar, probably overachiever, and we mean that respectfully. Not great in coverage, but has made some plays, even been a defensive player of the week at one point in his career. Also on the restricted list, Coleman Shelton, Jamil Demby, John Wolford as a backup. Is somebody going to make a run at him for their team? And then here's one to think about, kicker Matt Gay, who was a Pro Bowler this year. So the Rams have their work cut out for them. We saw Sean McVay wearing the shirt. We saw the shirt, not Sean McVay, excuse me, Les Snead wearing the shirt. He's done an amazing job. It's time to go back to work. What do you get, a week or two to celebrate a Super Bowl victory? Here we go. Senior Bowl's coming up. Rams are big on Senior Bowl players when it comes to draft. So there's a lot to consider now as we move into the offseason. But you know what? To hell with that. We're going to throw that away. It is time to celebrate a Super Bowl championship. So for this week on Gridiron Icon, thanks for bearing with me. Didn't have a guest lined up this week because, frankly, didn't have time, didn't have energy, didn't pursue one because I've been celebrating what is one of the greatest moments for me as a Rams fan in my entire life. And I just want to thank my team, my listeners, people that come over and shoot me a lot of private messages, texts, DMs. And I know I'm a Rams fan, despite my love for all things Gridiron. I want to say thank you. It has been a ton of fun. So go Rams, go out there, celebrate, be safe. Looking forward to a repeat. I'm going to say it now. But that's it for this week on Gridiron Icon. I am going to be back next week with some fun fan guests. We're lining up some players, some coaches, and we will be pushing out information on that, obviously, in all the usual places on social media. But we appreciate it if you like, subscribe, follow us on all the major podcast networks on Spotify, Apple iTunes, and the like. You can find us at Icon Gridiron on Twitter, where I personally manage that account, and of course on Instagram at Gridiron_Icon. Thanks for joining me this week. Again, we appreciate all you do. We appreciate hearing from you. I'd like to make a request of anybody listening or watching. Give me your top storyline from the 2021-2022 world champion Los Angeles Rams. I'd like to hear, with all those stories out there, I'd like to hear what you thought the best was. Thanks again. We'll see you all next week here on Gridiron Icon.